Martin Scorsese's gangster classic Goodfellas follows mafia hood Henry Hill as he works his way up the mob ladder. Hill is an associate of Lucchese crime family captain Paul Vario, called Paul Cicero in the film, who mentors Henry. Henry is also friends with Tommy DeSimone, called Tommy DeVito in the film, and Jimmy Burke, called Jimmy Conway in the movie, played by Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro respectively. Jimmy is an unpredictable gangster, ambitious and calculating. He is labelled wild by Paulie in the film, and Tommy is even worse than Jimmy, as he's essentially a trigger-happy murdering lunatic who has no qualms about murdering innocent people. One of the most famous scenes of Goodfellas is the Billy Batts incident. Batts was a made man of the powerful Gambino crime family, and allegedly a protege and associate of future mob boss John Gotti. In the film, Batts returns from a 6-year stint in prison in 1970 and is thrown a welcome home party by Jimmy at Henry's bar. In real life, the incident took place at Robert's Lounge, which was owned by Jimmy. Tommy arrives with his girlfriend and is clearly irritated at seeing Batts, muttering to his friends that he forgot he was being released. After a moment of hesitation, where it looks like he considers just ignoring Batts' call for him to come over, Tommy greets Batts but becomes increasingly frustrated with Batts' hugging and kissing, even going as far as to saying "watch this suit" when Batts greets him. Batts takes notice of Tommy's attitude and decides to twist the knife, saying that if he wanted to break Tommy's balls he'd tell him to go home and get his shine box, a reference to the days where Tommy would shine shoes as a kid. Things get a little heated, there's a bit of tension, until both parties calm down and go on enjoying their drinks, only for Batts to then say the line we all know and love, "Now go home and get your fucking shine box." This sends Tommy into an irate fit, who looks to launch himself at Batts but is stopped by his friends. Batts is unfazed and even welcomes Tommy's taunts, egging him on, with Tommy telling Henry to keep him here. Now, perhaps that should have been a sign to Batts that something was going to go down. But what we can presume to be hours later, he's still at the bar, with only a lot less people in it. Tommy returns and together he and Jimmy ambush Batts, beat him half to death, and along with Henry stuff him into the boot of a car and later stab and shoot him to death. They then bury him, and they still weren't done with him because later in the film they even dig him back up. And of course, the unsanctioned murder of a made man like Batts is one of the primary reasons why Tommy is later murdered. Now with this whole Billy Batts situation, several questions can arise. One of which is, why wasn't Jimmy also killed for his part in Batts' murder? A topic which I've already covered in another video, so check it out on the channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Another question which arises is, just why the heck did Batts not get the hell out of there as soon as he heard Tommy say, "keep him here"? Sure, he's been gone away a long time, and he doesn't know how much of a sick psycho Tommy has become, but surely when someone acts like that, a thought might flash into your head that maybe this guy is going to come back and cause trouble. At the very least, keep your muscle around. But the guy called Vito who Batts greets at the beginning of the scene is nowhere to be found when we cut to later when Batts is attacked. Who is this Vito? Is he one of Batts' crew? Then why was he not there to protect Batts? Maybe he was paid off by Jimmy. Maybe Batts wasn't supposed to hang around certain individuals when he was on parole. Or maybe Vito just got bored of listening to Batts and Jimmy argue over Batts' operations, which he wanted control back over now that he was out of prison, which now belonged to Jimmy. But the fact is, Batts stayed at a diner all alone, surrounded by friends of Tommy's after Tommy had specifically threatened him. So why stay? Well, let's take a look at the situation. Now there's two ways we can dissect this. The first is by looking at events in the film and the second in real life. So let's start with the movie. In Goodfellas, it's established that if you're a made guy, then you're untouchable and you cannot be harmed. Real-life mob accounts tell us that people who were in the mob but were not made were absolute scum compared to those who were made. Made men were like royalty compared to non-made associates and soldiers. As a made man, you could start beef with a soldier, you could steal from him, you could practically do anything to him and he'd have to sit and take it. As Henry tells us in the film, it's the highest honor they can give you. It means you belong to a family and crew. It means that nobody can fuck around with you. It also means you could fuck around with anybody else just as long as they aren't also a member. It's like a license to steal. It's a license to do anything. And it's as simple as that. Batts was a made guy and Tommy wasn't. Batts had no reason to think that a non-made guy would even dare lay a finger on him, or this Irish hoodlum called Jimmy. Batts was the highest ranking guy in the room. He was a feared man, part of a powerful family, completely untouchable and well above this excitable midget and his hysterical shenanigans. In fact, Bats had to stay. For him to leave after Tommy threatened him would be perceived as a sign of weakness. It would imply he was scared of the little guy. So even if he wanted to go home immediately after, for whatever reason, maybe he had diarrhea or something, he would feel compelled to stay to show that he was not afraid of Tommy's outburst. It's also worth noting, as stated, Bats has been away for some time, so he would have most likely been unaware of Tommy's violent tendencies and psychopathic nature. To him, he is simply a guy who shines his shoes so good they look like fucking mirrors. Excuse my language. So let's take a look at real life now, and it goes without saying that we can never be too sure of details in real life, but there are some things we know for sure. All of the same principles apply as in the movie, but there are some key differences and additions. First of all, Bats is thought to have been 49 years old at the time of his death, and it may surprise you to know, because he was played by Joe Pesci in his 40s, but Tommy DeSimone is thought to have been in his early 20s during this incident. So you can picture the ridiculousness of the scene in your head. Not only is Bats a made guy, but he's an older guy, and Tommy is practically a kid. It's only been a few years since the guy was a teenager. Why on earth would Bats be afraid of someone who's literally a child? To him at least. But the biggest difference between the film and real life, the thing that puts the entire situation into its proper context, is that Billy Bats was not killed on the same night as the shoe shining incident. In fact, it was 2 weeks later when Bats was actually ambushed by Tommy. This actually makes Tommy look a little less erratic now as well, as instead of coming straight back after the incident to kill Bats, he waited several days. At a different club, the Suite, apparently owned by Henry Hill and with the club almost empty, Tommy approached Bats and pistol whipped him, yelling, "Shine these fucking shoes." After beating him, as the film shows, Jimmy, Henry and Tommy placed his body in the boot of Henry's car and stopped at Tommy's mother's to get a knife and shovel, and shortly after they realized Bats was still alive after hearing noises from the trunk, and he was then beaten to death and allegedly buried at a dog kennel. One source I've read also states that Bat was intoxicated at the time of the ambush, meaning he would have been unable to properly defend himself. It's not clear whether Tommy planned the hit in advance or whether he and Jimmy Burke just happened to come across Bat and remembered Bat's comments. Either way, I hope this video has made a little more sense of this iconic scene for you. For more videos and related content, consider subscribing to the channel, and thanks for watching.